Welcome back to the Centered on Buffalo podcast brought to you by Dano's Seasoning. Right now, if you go to danosseasoning.com, use the link in the show notes as well. You can get 13 of their premium seasonings for just $65. All those will be incredible at tailgates all this fall. Preseason games are up and rolling, and they will make you look like a king at your tailgate. Also, go check out their new Outlaw seasonings. Those are absolutely incredible. Yum, yum, get you some. Go check them out, Dano's Seasoning. All right, welcome to this week's episode. Our guest this week is Field Yates. He's one of my favorite people on ESPN. He's an analyst for them. He's an insider for them, and he talks a lot on fantasy football. He is an absolute expert. He just released his new top 100 rankings, so go check those out. He'll get you prepped for your fantasy football drafts that are coming up or that you're prepping for. And so we are going to talk about some of his rankings on some of these Bills players. We're going to talk about Bills storylines as well. We're going to take a look around the league, and we're also going to look at some maybe mistakes or strategies for fantasy football coming up. Enjoy the episode. Thank you to all that have subscribed to the podcast. If you haven't already, please make sure you do. And also thank you for all those out there that share the episodes on social media. Enjoy and go Bills.
Hit us up on all social media at The Buffalo Pod.
Field, welcome on the podcast, brother.
It's great to be on with you, man. It's an honor. I'm a little mad at you. I think about somebody who accomplished a ton as a career, and I always thought when you were playing, if we had 53 Eric Woods, it'd be a pretty unstoppable NFL team. And then you pivot to the media, and you have a ton of success doing that as well. So I'm trying to put my kids through college one day, so make sure you give some opportunity to the rest of us that didn't already enjoy an illustrious NFL playing career too.
Well, I really appreciate those kind words, and I left ESPN. I was there for a couple years, so I'll let you carry the torch over there, and I'm settling into this Bills radio gig, which has been a ton of fun, and then doing the podcast stuff. But okay, so for you this time of year, I'm covering one team right now, essentially. Now I'm prepping for a preseason game against the Giants this week, so I got to know their storylines and headlines a little bit. But how tough is it this time of year tracking all 32 teams as an NFL insider, but also on the fantasy football perspective when you're getting boatloads of data constantly going right now?
I'd say the biggest thing that I've learned is at this time of the year, you got to be really, really careful about reading too much or thinking too much into like a single highlight. One great catch, one great throw, one great run, one amazing interception, whatever it might be, right? Like at some point you have to understand that like it's training camp. Guys are practicing for 22 or 23 out of 28 or 29 days. And even the players that are on the bottom of the roster in the NFL are literally the best players in the world. So guys are going to make great plays. But just because, insert any Bills receiver, like, hey, if Keon Coleman has one great catch, like the more important part to me is that like the Bills drafted him with the first pick of the second round last year. He had a role that I think they all intend to grow this year, whether he makes one great catch or not. So what I try to do is look for themes over the course of camp. So it's following along with all the reports. And hey, maybe a guy, and I'm just, with James Cook not practicing right now, over the past whatever days, it's been 10 days of training camp. Hey, it's clearly Ray Davis, who, if James is unavailable, Ray is the guy. It's more trends than it is individual plays because the individual plays are a ton of fun and they spread obviously all over social media. And I, of course, consume it. I just got to remind myself that like one play does not make or break a player's outlook.
Yeah, absolutely. You could have fallen off the Jamar Chase bandwagon when he dropped a couple balls in the preseason, 4 years ago when everyone said, what a bust, he can't catch. And then obviously we know where he's at in his career right now. And then to your point, last year, the hot topic coming out of Bill's training camp was Dalton Kincaid, how he's going to be their number one receiver. And look, I love Dalton Kincaid. Injuries, he had a nagging knee last year that really plagued him. Credit to him for pushing through it, not saying anything, not trying to be like, oh, look how tough I am. I'm playing through this knee deal. But then obviously he wasn't our number one receiver last year. And then you look at all the buzz this year is Keon Coleman right now and about how he can, he's going to make this huge jump in year two. But we'll get to the Bills, maybe skill guys in a little bit. But I just want to know this before we start digging in on some specific players or rankings and whatnot. Yeah. I know the players catch a lot of grief after games, from their fantasy football owners. How tough is your Twitter, Instagram, those direct messages, your timeline during that time? How tough is it, maybe on an NFL Sunday or come Monday morning?
Yeah, I've realized that the best thing I can do for my sanity is just not look, right? Like I'm a producer, not a consumer on Twitter on Sundays, right? Like if I have something I want to push out there, I'll push it. I'm not going to spend too much time looking at the feedback. And I think, and you probably have learned this throughout your both your high school to college to pro playing days, is that like you can, if you walk around the city of Buffalo, some of the people that may have been, a total turd to you on social media would probably come up there and be like, dude,
Right.
Eric Wood, man, you were the best, like greatest center in Bills history. Let me get a selfie right now, right? Like, it's much easier to choose hate privately than it is in public. And I think that I try to, and this is sometimes tested, I try to see the best in most people. So mostly I am just looking at the stuff that I'm pushing out myself to make sure I didn't spell someone's name wrong or something like that. But I used to, when I was in high school, there was a sign up on the wall somewhere that said, "To whom much is given, much is expected." My football coach used to always say that, right? And we obviously have these very, very, we have these incredible roles that we're very grateful to get to do. And if the underbelly of that is that you've got some people that have nothing to do with their time other than, be rude to others, that's something I can live with and tolerate.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And look, you can do as much research as you want. The ball's going to bounce different ways. Guys are going to get in, whatever it may be. It's going to be
Yeah.
tough to predict everything that's going to happen on an NFL Sunday. All right, so you just released your latest version of the top 100 rankings, and
Yeah.
you have Josh Allen as
Yeah.
QB4 in your rankings right now.
Yeah.
You have Lamar, Jaden, and Jalen ahead of
Yeah.
him. What made you put those three ahead of Josh Allen at this point?
Yeah, so I'm gonna like defend my honor here for a second, and then dive into the reasoning. Is
Okay.
that so? If you look at the top 100 overall, I think those four quarterbacks are separated by six total
Yeah,
spots,
I
right?
saw that as well.
Uh,
Yeah.
so basically, what I'm trying to say, and nuance doesn't really enter the social media discourse, but on our show that we do, Fantasy Focus Daily, which is the studio that I'm in right now, we've kind of said like 1 through 4, they're interchangeable. It's guys who all have the real possibility of finishing as the best quarterback in fantasy football. No one would be surprised by that at all. Lamar was, the best quarterback by like 80 points last year, so he's a deserving number one. The best, if Josh is going to finish fourth out of those four, to me, the most likely reason is that he's had 3 straight years where his carry total has gone down.
Yep.
Sean McDermott has not hid from the fact that, like, you have to be smart. Sean, of course, was on the staff in Carolina when Cam Newton was, going up and up and up. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, the hit count adds up. And next thing you know, you're not the same player athletically that you were, during your early 20s. On top of that, the Bills have, the best offensive line in the AFC on the short list, at least for the entire NFL. James Cook had 16 rushing touchdowns this season. So this past season, it's seriously nitpicking here. So I think like I could have easily just made Josh QB1, Lamar QB4, and I wouldn't have felt like that much different about it. But the most important takeaway for people in their drafts is that 1, 2, 3, and 4 for quarterback are so close that in some ways it makes sense that if you're going to take a quarterback early, let somebody else start the train. Because if somebody else takes Lamar at, let's say, pick 26 and you pick at 31, and you have the opportunity to grab Josh Allen 5 spots or a half a round later than Lamar Jackson, that's really good value because I'm basically telling you you're getting the same level of player.
Yeah, I agree with that. And look, when I look at, heading into this season, I would put Lamar number one as well. And then the other three, I would probably put Josh ahead, just assuming that James Cook's rushing totals go down. That was tied for the most in
Yep.
Bills history last year. So that's where I sit them, but we're in the same boat there on those quarterback rankings, and it'll be fun to see how those play out this year. I honestly asked that because I looked at the rankings and I understand how tight those are. I figured you'd get a rise out of Bills fans
No
having
doubt.
him ranked QB4 in that
I
case.
consider myself a little bit of a Josh, not an apologist. It's hard to be a Josh apologist. Like the guy's one of the best players we've literally ever seen. He's the NFL MVP. I think he has, I think there's a chance that like this is the interesting part about all the quarterbacks in the AFC, but I really think about Josh and Lamar specifically is that right now it's Patrick Mahomes in a tier of his own in terms of like the best player. Each of those guys has an opportunity though. If they get to multiple Super Bowls and win them, either of those players, then like the debate will rage, right? Like if Josh
Hmm.
Allen has an MVP and 2 Super Bowls and potentially other MVP mixed in there, then all of a sudden it's a conversation, right? For now, we measure a lot of quarterback acumen by Lombardi trophies, which winning is very important. Um, but Josh and Lamar have such a unique opportunity to totally change the narrative of where they are on the short list. I think they're on the short list already for most talented quarterbacks we've ever seen. There's a short list of most talented and also most accomplished. I'm assuming, but I know both of them care much more about the most accomplished list than most talented, because accomplishments would be
Right.
wins and Super Bowls. But it's an interesting time right now for each of them. Mahomes feels sort of distant in some people's eyes, but with 2 good seasons or 3 good seasons, we could be having an interesting debate.
Yeah, you're exactly right. All right, so the Bills have had this philosophy for since Joe Brady took over as offensive
Yeah,
coordinator. Everybody eats. For
yeah,
fantasy football owners, that's a nightmare because you don't
yeah,
know who's going to eat each and every week. Does that hurt? Let's look at a Josh Palmer, a Dalton
yeah.
Kincaid, even a James Cook to an extent. In a Keon Coleman, hey, a breakout season, but does that mean 2 highlight catches a game and a
Right.
touchdown, or what's that look like? Does that everybody eats approach hurt the Bills' skill position players fantasy wise?
It does, and that's not a bad thing though. Like Bills
Right.
fans are more concerned, I'm sure, with real football, and it means good things for real football, but bad things for fantasy football. Because I think there's a pretty steady bet that Khalil Shakir will, and it sounds like, by the way, he's going to have a real shot to play in Week 1. That'll lead the team in catches this year, right? But with Khalil, he is like a security blanket. He's probably not going to push for 1,200 yards in a year, but he's a good bet for 75 catches for 900 yards and 4
Right.
touchdowns or something, right? Um, so what I always do when you have a situation where there's no clear and obvious guy that is set to feast is you bank on the possibility that one of them could break out. And to me, because of the pedigree last year, because of what I studied from Keon Coleman during his time at Florida State and prior to that, Michigan State, like he's the guy that if you told me, all right, I could just totally see this player taking it to a new level and play in a way that is conducive to fantasy points, as in score a lot of touchdowns, it would be the 6'3", 215-pound guy who I believe there is a really, really good starting perimeter wide receiver in Keon Coleman. He showed it a little bit last year. The breakthrough potential is there. Josh Palmer has become one of my favorite sleepers, only because I was a fan of Josh coming out of Tennessee. I remember watching him in preseason for the Chargers in certain years when they had both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and being like, how is this guy not playing more? The Bills kind of showed us how they feel with a $36 million contract for Josh Palmer. He's a professional football player. He's a professional, I should say. Like this guy's got a
Right.
chance to. He's going to go for free. But if you're in the last round of your draft and you're like, why not? Like good things come to those who play with Josh Allen. So none of them are obvious. Like going to be a starter every single week in your wide receiver 1 or 2 spot. But there are some good options, because if Josh throws for 42 touchdowns this year, which he can do, and somebody gets 10 of those, that player will be a fantasy staple.
Yeah, if this injury to Khalil lingers, or if he gets hurt this year, I think Josh Palmer could really be in that 7 to 9 catches a game, because he's always like the Cole Beasley type, the Khalil
Yeah.
Shakir, and he's already got the rapport with Shakir. And I think Palmer honestly could be a little bit taller, maybe more down the field stretching
Yeah.
type version of those types of players. But the way it sits right now, I think that ball is going to continue to get spread around to where it's going to be tough to make any of those guys your top 1 to 2 receivers on your fantasy team. I agree 100%. All right. So
Yeah.
last year in my auction league, I decided to go to the boom or bust
Yeah.
model. I paid a ton for McCaffrey and obviously
Yeah.
busted. I fought my tail off. We had some good pickups late. I got Hubbard late and a
There you
couple
go.
others that helped carry the torch for the team. But my team name, ultimately, I named them Injury Bug because we couldn't get over the hump. I also had
God.
I had Rasheed Rice, who was feasting early in the
Oh,
season and
yeah.
all that. So all that being said, what are your thoughts on Christian McCaffrey for this year, fantasy wise?
So I tell people this all the time, is that like fantasy football is not just a game of like strategy and analysis and projection. It's a game of emotions.
Right.
There was a clip that went on Twitter maybe a week or so ago. It was one of the early days of training camp, and the 49ers posted it. It was McCaffrey making this really, I mean, this excellent catch, right? He's Christian McCaffrey, one of the best pass catching running backs ever. And I posted it and I just said something to the effect of like, I understand why he won't go number 1 overall. The reasons are obvious: injury, age. But if you were guaranteed 17 games of Christian McCaffrey, like he should be in that conversation. And it was amazing to see the responses. Again, I'm trying to get better about not reading them at all, not just on Sundays and Mondays. But there are a lot of people that are just mad. They're angry, right? They feel like it was a letdown personally by Christian McCaffrey last year when, like, clearly he does not want to be injured. By all accounts, a very competitive, fiery teammate. Um, it's a risk. You're either comfortable with it or you're not. And I'm comfortable with it. I think he deserves to be a first round pick. I have him as the fifth rated running back right now. No surprise that it's Bijan Robinson,
Yep.
Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley to start. And then Ashton Genty, Christian McCaffrey, kind of like neck and neck for that 4 or 5 spot right there. The 49ers all of a sudden are not super deep. And that's what they were for a lot of years, right? It was like you got Debo and Ayuk and George Kittle and McCaffrey. It hits a little bit different when it's no Debo, no Ayuk, and Jawan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall. Now, there's still going to be a good offense, but this offense should run through Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle. So it's a big time boom bust pick with Christian McCaffrey. If you're the kind of person that doesn't want to be let down in the same way twice in a row, I think people will abstain from Christian McCaffrey. I think it's kind of a value, though. I'm seeing him go like 9th, 10th overall, which if Christian McCaffrey plays 17 games, he will be way higher than 9th or 10th overall in scoring by the end of the year.
Yeah, I agree 100% on that. I got to figure out my emotions before my drafts come up, and
I
where
still haven't figured mine out, so I can't blame you for being in the process still.
I got to figure out my emotions on that. All right, so we just saw that ESPN purchased NFL Network. Are there any changes that fans can expect to see this season with that?
I don't think so. So, if, as I understand it, like this is a process that has begun, but will take some time. The NFL fantasy, it was announced it was part of the deal. So I think that you'll see some of the best of what they have, hopefully blended with some of the best of what ESPN has. I think it'll look a lot very similar to where we have been in prior years. But I think once we get into maybe later in the season or even later, I don't know, midway through the season, early in the season, but not August 7th when you and I are having this conversation. It look a little bit different. But for the most part, things should be status quo with ESPN. And not to sound like a company man here, but like the fantasy app team is grinding all off season. They are constantly picking our brains on like, what do you think about this little alteration here, this little alteration there? So some cool new features in the app that I think are very user friendly and make for a great, not just Sunday experience when you're watching the games, but also throughout the offseason.
Yeah. The ESPN fantasy football app, I believe, is head and shoulders above the others that I've tried in the past. And the information that you get, the videos, it's not like, okay, I'm already participating in the league. I'm giving you all these hits. Like, why am I now going to pay for like the rankings or whatever? It's like you're getting what you want from me. Like, don't try and get me for another $10. Go ahead.
I think I'm going to clip that right there and just send it to all the executives at ESPN and say, I like endorsements from people like Eric Wood. So just a heads up, he likes what we're doing here. So keep it up, everybody.
Let's take a moment to hear from one of our podcast partners, and that is our friends at Waterboy. I got their workout hydration right here. These are my favorite. Go check them out at waterboy.com. And right now, you can look for the pop-up that will give you a free sample. You're going to try these for free. These will keep you hydrated all football season long, whether you're prepping for a game out in the heat or a tailgate out in the heat, or you're recovering the next day. Either way, our friends at Waterboy will take care of you. Go check them out at waterboy.com. We're going to get to the rapid fire round, and that's brought to you by Dano's Seasoning. Question number 1. Have you ever tried Dano's Seasoning before?
No, but I've seen so much of the branding that I am very curious now.
Okay, we're going to get you some sent. I know
Okay.
you're a Northeast guy. We have a seasoning, which is seafood similar to an Old Bay, but a lot
Ooh.
healthier, more natural ingredients. Like all ingredients you'll be able to read on the label and understand what they are, which you can't on most seasonings. So
No, you cannot. Yeah.
we'll get you that set up. All right. So do you have a general strategy in a draft of like wide receiver, running back, or running back, wide receiver, or is it best available, but you're keying those positions?
Definitely lean again. A perfect world. I'm getting a running back or two in the first 3 rounds. Like I really would like to. I don't like the feeling of going into round 4 or 5 and being like, all right, I got great receivers and I might have Brock Bowers or Josh Allen, but I might be starting like a backup running back because I let everybody else take them. So when in doubt, I do lean towards running back. I also like I just pack it full with upside here. Like Keon Coleman versus DeAndre Hopkins. Maybe at the end of this season, DeAndre Hopkins has more catches than Keon Coleman. That's not what I'm focused on. I think if there's a chance that one of those two guys has 10 touchdowns this year, it's Keon Coleman. So I always look for the upside plays, the young guys, the lottery tickets, because, and I, not to sound like Ricky Bobby, but like, if you're not first, you're last in fantasy football here, right? Like finishing fifth does nothing for you. It makes you, I guess, not angry, but finishing last will do that. But I don't know. I don't recall many leagues where I finished fifth. Like I can recall the ones that I won. I can recall the ones where I laid a big fat egg and did not win, like was near the bottom of the pack. But those fifth place finishes do nada for me.
You mentioned coming in last. Have you participated in any leagues where there's a punishment for coming in last? And if so, what's been the best?
This is my favorite one, and I play in a league. So Nantucket, the island of Nantucket, which is not super. It's off the coast of the Cape Cod of Massachusetts. There's a
Yep.
bar, a brewery there, Cisco Brewery, and I've spent many a day there. And the guys there are my boys, and they started the league. And one year they had a last minute dropout before the draft, and they were like, "I bet Field will do it." So I jumped on in, and the last place punishment in that league is whoever finishes last has to start at a lighthouse that's 8 miles plus from a bar. That person has to wear an Apple AirTag, and the rest of us go to the bar and start a tab. And until that guy shows up, everything is on him. So you better be hustling if you finish dead last, or else your wallet's going to hurt. We've had some absolutely great nights there, and actually the guy's going to do the run, I think, in the next week or so. So, but my buddy Kean, who had a tough year last year, is pretty athletic. So, it might be one of the shorter runs we've had in league history.
Yeah, that's a heck of a run. So you can't hitchhike. It's not like use any
No,
resources necessary. It's straight run, no
we keep
biking.
the tag open. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
like, we want to make sure there's a steady pace there. Like, you might, speed up from 6 to 8 miles an hour for like a couple minutes at a time. But if all of a sudden we see you go from like 7.5 miles away to 6.5 miles away in like a 3-minute stretch, we know something's up.
Yeah. So our punishment last year, we live in Louisville, Kentucky, so not anywhere
Yep.
close to the water.
Yep.
And the loser had to put a Salt Life sticker on the back of his car for a full year. So he gets to take it off. He gets to take it off in a couple weeks when we do our fantasy draft. But we also got to buy the sticker as well. We showed him some mercy. It wasn't like going to cover his whole entire back windshield. But we felt like that was a pretty good one. We haven't settled on our punishment for this year, but I would like to do something more like what you're talking about, like and really just something like that, like more monetary too, like that
Yeah.
gets people that like, hey, it's week 8. Okay, I'm still going to fight to not come in last place because then you could ruin the integrity of the league. Are there any guys, you mentioned Josh Palmer earlier as a sleeper? Is there one guy that you stand on the table for right now compared to all the other fantasy experts saying, I think this guy should go earlier than most people are saying?
We're starting to see like a lot of people kind of latch on to similar players. I am starting to, and I mentioned earlier how it's not Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, but I do think Ricky Pearsall for San Francisco is in line for a big year. He's a second-year player, kind of fits the mold of the breakout. Second-year player, first-round pick a year ago. Of course, he and I think it was 2 picks apart for him. Was it? He was 31, and then Keon went 32. It was very close last year after some maneuvering at the back end of round 1. But he's one that comes to mind for me because they need him.
Yeah.
Jawan Jennings right now is banged up. He's dealing with a calf injury. I don't know, and I'm not trying to suggest anything. I don't know if Jawan Jennings, who previously I think was on the search for a contract modification, I don't know if this is one where sometimes guys have the sore hammy and then they get the new deal and everything. The hammy
Right.
feels really good by the next day, but they need him. Like whether Jennings is available or not, it's George Kittle, Jawan Jennings, and Ricky Pearsall in an offense that it's pretty foolproof, right? Like Kyle Shanahan has made some lemonade out of lemons in the past. That this is not a group of lemons. This is a good group, but like we've seen the 49ers, even when backup quarterbacks were there, do some real damage through the air. So Ricky Pearsall is a good example of a guy that you're probably going to get him in the 10th round or later, but I think has some serious payoff value.
Yeah, I agree on that one. And prior to getting shot last year, had some promise and all that. So a year removed from that, yeah, I'm excited about him as well. All right, so if you had to pick one guy for the Bills between Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman, who ends up with the most points at the end of the year? Who are you taking?
So I think the steady bet is Khalil Shakir, assuming that this ankle injury, which again sounds like week 1's definitely in play, is not. There's no setback and he's available. Now, if you're asking me who has the better chance to finish as like a top 15 wide receiver, but it may be a remote chance for either of them because they do, the ball goes everywhere, but it's probably Keon Coleman. But Shakir, who was one of my favorite calls from last year, I was all about Khalil having a big breakout season, and he was obviously paid handsomely for that great season he had last year. To me, though, like I don't know if Khalil and Josh live in the same neighborhood, but if you told me that they were literally next door neighbors and hung out and like played pickup basketball together, I wouldn't be surprised because the chemistry between those two guys looks very obvious on the field. I'm sure it's strong off the field as well.
Yeah, for sure. All right, last one for me. Have you ever had wings in Buffalo before?
I have. I went to man. I used to go to at least one game a year. Duff's and shoot, where else did I go? Is there was there this maybe now since gone because I started going when I was a kid. Was there a place called Wild Bill's back in the day?
Potentially, that would have been
Maybe prior to your time there
yeah.
even. Yeah, but yes, I have. I've had some buffalo wings before.
Nice. Yeah,
Wings in Buffalo. Yeah.
we just got a Duff's in Kentucky as well. Did you try the blue cheese or no?
I'm almost positive. I love blue cheese. So I'm
Okay,
almost
okay,
positive I
perfect.
did.
Okay,
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
it. All right, so now you're one of us. We got to get you to another game. We'll take you around to a few spots. Field, I can't thank you enough for your time. Love following you on TV, on social media. You're the best, brother. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on. It's truly an honor, and let's have a great season, man. I'm pumped. I think the Bills. I don't know about um, setting it in stone. Things are hard to do in the NFL, but like I might put a hotel room reservation on the books if you're thinking about San Francisco in February. They certainly have a very, very promising outlook this season.
Yep, I love it too. Thanks, brother.
Josh is due. Yep. See
Oh
you, man.
yeah. Oh yeah.